Story that you've no doubt heard, but it's good and deserves a retelling. A father and a daughter were about to cross a busy intersection. And so the father issued the daughter simple but crucial instructions. Don't assume you have the right of way, even if the light is green. Keep your head on a swivel, always looking, even when you're in the crosswalk. And here, hold my hand. I'll lead the way and we'll cross together. Now to this, the girl could have responded pridefully and indignantly. I don't need to hold your hand. I'm a big girl, and I'll cross how and when I please. But instead, she replied quite thoughtfully, saying, No, Dad, I won't hold your hand. You need to hold mine. Well, the father was perplexed. You hold my hand, I hold yours. What's the difference, sweetie? The result is the same. Not at all, said the daughter. For if I hold your hand and something happens, I may, in a moment of weakness, let go, and then I'm vulnerable. But if you hold my hand, clutching firmly, you'll never let it go, and I'll be safe. So the father grabbed the girl's hand, the light turned green, and they successfully crossed. And every moment they were in the crosswalk together, that little girl trusted and felt safe and protected knowing that her dad was there. Now, as Christians, we know this type of trust in God is fundamental to how we live our lives. We believe in the fundamental goodness of God, in a Father who created us, a Son who saves us, and a Spirit who guides us true. We know that He is in control and accompanies us on our way, so we have no fear. I find that when I completely surrender to the Lord in this manner, handing it all over to the one in charge, it just works. But because we're human, we can find this hard to do sometimes. We want to be in control and are reluctant to surrender authority. We're independent and opinionated and think that we know best. And so we'll step into the crosswalk alone, sometimes without even looking, shunning that guiding and protected hand that's so needed. Or we'll grab the hand when it suits us and let it go when it no longer does. But today's readings remind us to put our faith and reliance where it belongs, in the Lord, and the gospel shows us how. First, Jesus demonstrates how he is firmly in charge. Speaking with authority, he says to his disciples, let's go to the other side. And with that simple command, he sets the agenda for the whole journey. He determines the destination, the other side, the means of travel, the boat, and the time of departure, now. And once Jesus is in the boat, where does he go? Well, he curiously goes to the stern, the back of the boat. But what's at the stern of a Galilean fishing boat? Well, that's where the rudder and steering controls are. The stern is also the place where one has the best view of the points of sail, the direction of the wind, and the amplitude of the waves. Jesus is firmly at the helm, and he is in command. Now the question is, are we going to trust him to get us to the other side? And here's where the supreme test comes in for us humans. Because once Jesus goes to the stern, he does the most peculiar thing. He goes to sleep. And when the violent squall strikes with its howling winds and crashing waves, he remains asleep. Now, this isn't the traditional image that comes to mind of a captain during a crisis. Hands on the wheel, barking orders, firmly in command while riding the storm. Surely the captain needs to visibly do something in these moments, right? So what's going on here? Has Jesus shirked his responsibilities as a helmsman? Is he endangering the lives of everyone on board? Is he aloof and insensitive to the cries he hears around us? Or has he given us the perfect example of exactly the kind of trust in God that we need to emulate? Think of all the cares and concerns that weigh upon Jesus in this moment. He's just had a really long day where he's ministered to thousands. His enemies pursue him, and want to destroy him. His disciples don't understand him. He knows the suffering that awaits him. He should be consumed with apprehension. And yet he doesn't worry at all. He sleeps like a baby. He trusts in his Father that everything is going to be okay. And that trust in the Father continues throughout the terrible storm, where even the disciples are convinced that the boat is going to capsize. But Jesus continues to sleep because he says to himself, I know the plans that my Father has for me, and it does not include me drowning in the Sea of Galilee. So I can rest and not worry. And through this example, I see that I can trust in the same way. First, I recognize he is clearly in charge at the helm. I might have opinions from my little vantage point at the bottom of the boat. Why doesn't he trim the sail, turn to starboard, drop the anchor? The wind is clearly shifting. Why doesn't he tack? I should be piloting this ship. I'm a big boy. I don't need him. I can set my own destination. But that's the value of humility and the lesson we learn from the first reading in Job. I'm not God. He is. And not being at the helm, I don't see everything that he sees. And so the question I need to ask myself is this: who am I going to trust to get me to the other side? Myself, with all my flaws and shortcomings? If I do that, I'll crash on the rocks or founder in the waves. Do I rely on my fellow travelers in the boat or in the flotilla around me? If I do that, I'm likely to arrive at the wrong shore. Do I leave it to chance, hope for a break in the weather and favorable winds? Or do I put my trust in the one whose hand is firmly on the tiller, the one best positioned to see the big picture, the one that I know is in control? Both logic and my heart give me the answer. I'm going to trust my captain to get me to the other side. But placing our trust in the captain doesn't mean abdication of responsibility on our part. We still have an important role to play on this journey. Now, maybe it's to man the oars and to row. Maybe it's to climb the mast and unfurl or trim the sails. Maybe we're to stand on the bow and act as a lookout. But in no circumstance is it ever to sit passively and just be mere ballast in the bilge, cargo in the hold, mere passengers in steerage. No, we are meant to be vigorous and spirited members of the crew, with all the duties and responsibilities that that entails, to listen to his commands, to obey, to do. But this is easy because his instructions are clear. Love God, love one another, and know that he will be with you on the journey. And trust him to do the rest. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Now, there will be storms with winds and waves. You can count on it. The hull might be damaged and the sail torn, but I am not going to be afraid because he is with me and he's true to his promises. And when you look over and see his outstretched hand, don't grab it. For in a moment of human weakness, we may let it go or pridefully wander away. Rather, let him grab your hand and pull you into his loving embrace, because then he'll never let you go. And at that moment, you can confidently embark together, and together you'll reach the safety of the opposite shore.